everyone. Let's try to get this all set up. So Simon did Funhouse, which I'll talk about, and as we watch him solve it. But let's check and see if the volume. So first of all, if you can hear the volume. Oh, my chat is broken. One moment. I think it was that. There we go. Okay, yeah. So can you hear the music?
Hello and welcome
can you hear
to
Simon?
Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where I have to distract myself from the Ryder Cup. So the best way to do that is to immerse myself in the Sudoku puzzle. And today we have got a puzzle called Funhouse by the great zetamath.
All right, so I will let Simon go over the rules, and then I'll talk about setting the puzzle
over the last few days. And I've just loaded it up. The rule set's really short, and there is something magical to me about Sudoku puzzles that are completely symmetrical, and you can see this one is. You know, if you folded, if we were to draw a line down the center of the grid like this and fold it over, everything maps. It's really beautiful. Obviously, the line colors are different, but it's perfectly reflected. It's just.
So I suppose it's worth talking about sort of the inspiration for this. So you might recall some time ago, I did a puzzle called Buffet, which featured, and Simon did this one, so you can go back and watch my zetamath reacts to Simon Solves Buffet if you don't remember it. But it featured like a bajillion line constraints, and in particular in box 2, there was an interaction between 10 lines and whispers, which made me go, hey, 10 lines and whispers are actually very closely interlocked for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is that if you ever see me do whispers puzzles, you usually see me mark lots of cells 1, 9, 2, 8, 3, 7, 4, 6 along a whispers. And so those conveniently also correspond to the dominoes that add to 10. So there's already this sort of duality between whispers and X's, which are sort of a big part of 10 lines. But they also both care very much about high and low digits, because 10 lines can't accommodate very many high digits. That ends up being a problem. So there's sort of a natural interplay between them. And so I knew as soon as I discovered that in Buffet that I was going to set a 10-line Sturm and Whispers puzzle, at least one. I probably will do another one at some point. But it took me a bit to get around to it. Now, one thing I noticed, and this is what Simon's already commented on, is that there's no reason why you couldn't do a 10-line Sturm and Whispers puzzle where it's completely symmetrical like this. So I knew from the beginning that for this puzzle, my intention was to do that. So I did it. So then Sarah asks if it's deliberate that it looks like a face, and the answer is it is completely accidental. I was delighted by the fact that it did look like a face at the end, but I will say that it definitely was not at any point was I trying to do that. At every point it was like, okay, how can I make logic that is natural force 2 of these things at once while sort of maintaining the mirror symmetry. So yeah, I was really happy with sort of the final grid. Now, we'll see how Simon does this, but I'll tell you sort of these are the disambiguating clues, sort of the nose and mouth. So the fact that it ended up looking like a person, I think, is 100% owed to how these clues happen to come out. But that was not too bad. Okay, someone's saying the sound is bad. Tristan, you need to tell me what to do if something is going on with the sound. Are other people having issues with the sound? My sound is cutting in and out. Let's see. Is it like this is not plugged into the microphone or something? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Sarah says it's fine. Daniel says it's fine. Okay, so maybe it might be on your end. Although I know that would be a little bit weird since you've been watching the stream all day and have not had sound issues, but technology is weird. I will say that because this puzzle is symmetrical, that means it's slightly overclued. So there are a couple paths through this puzzle as I've discovered. I had an intended path, However, I've seen multiple people solve the puzzle, and some of those people have taken almost verbatim the intended path. And some of those people have taken a completely different path. And so it's quite interesting. I'm going to be interested to see what Simon does, because Simon often, even in puzzles where there's sort of lots of options, Simon very often intuits exactly what I intended. So we'll see. So I'll tell you, just so you know in advance, you'll be able to tell. In my solve path, this 10 line is disambiguated very early, and the entire rest of the puzzle flows from how this 10 line works. In most people's alternate solve path, this 10 line is the very last thing that is disambiguated. So we'll see which of those Simon does.
Well, these setters, they never cease to amaze me. And I think, I'm not sure, I'm very bad at interpreting drawings generally. But is this a reference to that horror film? It wasn't a horror film called Funhouse, which had a very unpleasant looking clown.
It was not intended as a reference to the...
Are these lines depicting something?
It was not intended as a reference to the movie. So the only reason why I called it Funhouse is because almost all of my puzzles have one word titles, unless I have a very good reason to do otherwise. And so I wanted to reference the fact that it has the mirror symmetry. And so my reference to the mirror symmetry was to refer to the fact that funhouse mirrors are a standard thing. Like that's a thing that's in funhouses. And I guess the funhouse mirrors do often show up in horror movies, but also in other places. So so that's why I called it Funhouse. I have not heard of this horror movie.
Some sort of face that's a bit like that.
Hey, Ken.
I'm not sure. But I like to think that might be what's going on.
Well, Three of Diamonds falls under the category of
zetamath, I think.
Times when I had a very good reason to name it otherwise, because Three of Diamonds is the perfect title for that puzzle.
Has outdone himself.
3 whole words.
And zetamath's puzzles are always a great treat. So we're going to have a go at this in a moment or two's time, and I'll read you the rules in a few seconds. There's some things I want to mention first. I'm going to say today is the 1st of October, and that means it's Patreon reward day over on Patreon at 4 p.m. UK time this afternoon. We are releasing, or we will have released by the time this video goes live, a brand new Sudoku hunt from the Skunk Works.
Yep, I'm listening to Simon on headphones.
It's called Trick or Treat, so it's got a Halloween
doesn't overlap
theme.
the audio.
This is sort of the flyer for it, but this does literally so little justice to what the Skunk Works have created. It's a 25-page document. Most of the pages have got beautiful 6x6 puzzles on, each of which has a sort of Halloween theme. It's just beautiful. It is.
I do really
beautiful.
like 6x6 puzzles, by the way.
There's
a lot of great 6x6s.
Yeah, so I just want to say,
I know it's kind of amazing that's already October, isn't it?
For making this for us, it's really great. I've already said it's really great. It is really great. So I recommend, if you're a patron of the channel, do get yourselves over there. Start working your way through it. I think
I think it was March, not that long ago,
to qualify and be in with a chance of winning the competition. But if you want to get your name on the Roll of Honor,
can you get me an iced tea,
you
Tristan?
have to solve a few more puzzles.
I am out of drink.
Speaking of Rolls of Honor, the Roll of Honor for last month's monthly reward for September, which was Lines and Shapes, that will appear at the end of this video. So if you want to know whether you got everything right, do check out the Roll of Honor. That should appear at the end of this one. And if you want to become a patron, it's a couple of bucks a month, and I'll put a link on the screen now. Now, what else did I need
you
to
moved,
tell you
Sarah?
about?
Yeah, that'll do it. We did that.
Yes.
2 months ago, I guess.
Line Sudoku. It's out. It's out on Android. It's out on Apple. It may be out on Steam as well. So this is our brand new sort of Sudoku app. It's been a long
Line
time
constraints
in the
are my
making.
favorite, so I'm quite
Features
excited
puzzles
by
by
this.
some of the great and the good. I mean, this is just a screenshot from the app, and you can see the names down this right-hand side.
I gave them
it's
several
just
puzzles for this app.
fantastic.
I think in the
Lots
first
and lots
dump,
of you,
there's
I know,
only
have
one
already
puzzle
been
by me,
enjoying
but
it.
I think in
So,
total,
the way to get it
there
is you
are many
download
of them.
the free Cracking the Cryptic
Thank you,
app,
love.
which is on the App Store, etc. And then if you go to additional content, you'll find the Line Sudoku pack available right now. So that's very cool. Other than that, I've got some birthdays to do today. I'm going to start off by saying happy birthday to one of our youngest viewers, Caden. Caden, you've turned 5 today. And I know this because your dad, Joshua, wrote to us. I'm not sure, I haven't been told whether you're getting chocolate cake today, Caden, but I hope very much that you have a brilliant birthday. And thank you so much for watching us. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant when we hear that children, you know, we even hear about younger kids watching and appreciating some of the logic that appears in these puzzles. It's fantastic. I also need to say a very happy birthday to Chase. Chase, your wife Cheryl, Cheryl, I should say Cheryl. It could be Cheryl, but it's not. It's Cheryl. Wrote to us, and Chase, I obviously hope you have a brilliant birthday, but I do need to pause there and tell
chocolate
you all
cheesecake latte. You can
and
have both
Cheryl are
chocolate
getting
and
married
cake
in
and
November,
cheesecake with chocolate
and they
cheesecake, which is my
invited
personal
Mark
favorite.
and me to the wedding. I would love to attend. I wish I could go. The wedding is in Las Vegas, which is, I absolutely adore Las Vegas. I know I sort of feel like I shouldn't when I say that, but I have to be honest. I just do. It's the most magnificent city. I couldn't spend very long there, but to go there for a few days at a time, I wish I could accept, and thank you so much for inviting
Las
me.
Vegas, home of the
But
Betries.
it's not going to be practical. But I hope that you obviously have I know you're going to have an absolutely amazing time. The wedding invitation is amazing as well. It's sort of electronic, and it's got all these things that you can do in the days in and around the wedding. And there was like a chocolate factory visit. I mean, oh, good grief.
I want a chocolate factory visit. That sounds good. I'd do
now, I've got 2 other recommendations though, but to Chase and to Cheryl. First is, I know you're staying at Caesar's Palace. I think Absinthe. Absinthe. I've seen it twice in Las Vegas. I think both times were at Caesar's Palace. It is the most fantastic show I've ever seen. So I recommend that, and also, of course, the Pinball Museum. I mean, that should really have been on your wedding invitation, to be honest, but no, never mind. Yeah, Pinball Museum, somewhere you can spend a long time. Anyway, that's enough. Chase, happy birthday. Let's have a look at Funhouse by Zetamath, and I will read you the rules. They are as follows. We've got normal Sudoku rules apply, so we need to put the digits 1 to 9 once each.
By the way, I have to say, when I was contacted to ask if I would set puzzles for the Line app, I asked if I could put 10 lines puzzles in, and I was expecting they'd say no, we're not going to support 10 lines, but they actually immediately said yes, 10 lines are fine. So I think I gave them 4 10 lines puzzles or something like that, and 1 monstrously difficult puzzle that involves a whole bunch of lines. So we'll see. We'll see if that makes it in there. But anyway, there are many fun 10 lines puzzles, I think. Jaleb, this was over a year ago. I had only ever at that point only ever set 1 Nabner puzzle, and I admit at the time I set Nabner, the original Nabner puzzle, I did not have any idea of making it into a genre that I would repeat. It wasn't until I set Soliloquy that I was like, oh, I could do something that's sort of cute with whispers and Nabners. And then sort of from there, I was like, oh, I guess this actually does interact with a bunch of things. But the sort of thinking about how Nabners would interact with other things isn't something I thought about for probably 2 years after setting the original. Okay, that's not literally true. I did actually immediately set a Nabner Renbon puzzle after I set the first Nabner puzzle. So what I said is kind of a lie, but I didn't intend to do more than those 2. But then I have since done several of them. Over on my stream, I do, I sort of like once every stream or every other stream or every third stream, depending on how much is going on, I'll do one of my older puzzles, and I'm going back through puzzles from 2 years ago. My next one is the Nabner puzzle, which I'm going to be excited to go back and redo that, because that is one of my proudest of the things I've set.
In every column and in every 3x3 box. Adjacent digits along a green line must differ by at least 5. So let's look at this green line. If this was a 1, what would that mean? If this was a 1, this would have to be at least a 6, because it needs to be at least 5 different from 1 here. It can't actually be a 6 for technical reasons. If this was 6, this digit would have to be a 1 as well, because 6 only has one partner on the line. It's monogamous, but we'll get into that, I suspect, when we get to solving. Then each grey line consists of one or more non-overlapping groups of consecutive cells, each of which sums to 10. So these are 10 lines. Let's pick a 10 line to examine. Should we examine this one? So what we'd have to work out here is some
If
portion.
this green...
So what we'd have to work out here is
turn off my keypad before I accidentally
cells along
rewind
the
or whatever.
line have to add up to 10. So it could be those two.
So, sorry, MicroStudy asking if I deliberately chose a different color green. I used the green that is just given in the app for that works for F-Puzzles. So if this green is different than the green that F-Puzzles uses by default, it is because Cracking the Cryptic re-entered the puzzle. By the way, if you're interested in setting and what setting actually looks like, I'm going to talk, of course, about how I set this some today. But yesterday on stream, I set a whole puzzle with chat. So if you want to see all of the ins and outs of what that actually looks like, you can just look in my my history, and you can see the stream from yesterday where we set that.
For example, imagine they added up to 10. Then
So
you could have those two adding up to 10 and
feedback?
those two adding up to 10. That would be a possible way that this line could be constituted. Now, it could be lots of other things as well. Those three could add up to 10, and then those three could add up to 10. That's possible. And our job is going to be to try and analyze each of these lines and work out how we can split them up to create consecutive sequences of digits that add up to 10 without overlapping. Do have a go. Let's get involved in the Funhouse. Let's see what zetamath has got in store for us. The way to play is to click the link.
I will say, by the way, 10 lines are by far my favorite of the constraints that I have come up with. I of course, I love coming up with new stuff, and I will always come up with new stuff because it's kind of my thing. But 10 lines, I think, are sort of like they really sort of like hit for me right, because they each have a little bit of a puzzle, and they also really don't do much until you figure out how to look at them right. And so they sort of tend to be, I usually talk about strong clues and weak clues, where a strong clue is one that gives you a lot and a weak clue is one that gives you almost nothing. And so I greatly enjoy that 10 lines are very weak clues. And so like until you sort of have a lot of context, it's really hard to get much about them. So they tend to lead to like really precise sorts of solve paths. Now, I have a huge tendency for weak clues, and that actually led to a really funny thing when I'm setting this puzzle, because this puzzle's perfectly symmetrical. However, if you think about it, long 10 lines are weak, and short whispers are weak. And so my tendency is to never have a whispers anywhere near as long as some of the whispers in this puzzle, and never have a 10 line anywhere near as short as some of the 10 lines in this puzzle. But because in this puzzle I decided on this mirror symmetry, I was obligated to have some short 10 lines and some long 10, some short 10 lines and some long whispers, because otherwise the whole thing would sort of fall apart. So that was a really interesting sort of tension that I didn't at all think about when I decided that I was going to do this grid symmetrical. I'm going to have to put in some clues that are stronger than I usually would want to in order to make it work.
Under the video, as usual, my chair has started squeaking, which is discombobulating.
MicroStudy.
But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I'm going to start. I don't know any secrets about 10 lines, I'm afraid, but I do know 3 secrets about German whispers lines that I'm just going to regurgitate for you in case you've never seen one of these green lines before. First secret, you can't put 5 on a green line, because if you do, the next digit becomes impossible, because it has to be at least 5 different from 5. If you go upwards, you get to 10, that's not a valid Sudoku digit. If you go downwards, you get to 0, and that's not a valid Sudoku digit. And obviously negative numbers and numbers bigger than 10 are even worse. Jolly naughty. So no 5s on green lines. That means that what happens with a green line, let's imagine this was a low digit, so a number lower than 5. What's this digit got to be now? And because it has to be at least 5 different from one of these digits, it actually has to be always higher than 5. And then this digit will always be lower than 5, and this digit will always be higher than 5, etc. So you get this oscillation along green lines, which is normally important. And the other thing, which I mentioned a bit in the example in the introduction, is that 4 and 6 on green lines are the most restricted digits because they are monogamous. They only have one partner
I don't think
digit.
he's missed it, Nicholas. I think he's just explaining to people who are new to German Whisperers how they work.
Would result in a breakage of Sudoku rules. Same would happen with 4. Its partner digit is always 9, and that's not going to work. So those are my 3 secrets, in case they matter. Now, what can I see immediately? I'm wondering... Let me just check that. No. Okay, so this is the longest green line, I think. Although there's a whole package of green lines in the top left, but that's the longest green line. So I'm highlighting those squares because they have these 3 squares have the same polarities. They're either all high or all low. The same is true for these. Same is true for those.
I had to say, by the way, when I was setting this puzzle, I set basically the entire puzzle, and I had, for whatever reason, assumed that I couldn't put a 5 on a particular 10 line, but I was being a little bit sloppy with it. And so the entire puzzle was based on a deduction literally in the first step that was incorrect. And so then I had to scrap the entire thing and start over. So this is basically my second time setting almost exactly this puzzle. Because I completely messed it up the first time. Yeah, 1, 5, or 8. 8 is also pretty common in terms of boxes. Reef is a real outlier because it has the break-in in box 3.
I can see one thing, which is related to the nose of the clown. The only other thing I'm seeing here immediately is 5 in this box has to be in this domino look, because it can't go on a green line.
Yeah, I wish the deduction associated with this nose was intentional, but it was not.
Then we would know how the grey line was split up. So this is a 5-cell grey line. Now, if we think about the various ways you can make digits add up to 10, could you have a 4-cell sequence? The answer is yes. 1, 2, 3, 4 would work, wouldn't it? In fact, we have to be a bit careful as well, because there's nothing in the instructions that says you can't repeat digits on a grey line. So maybe, for example, those 2 digits could be the same Sudoku digit. If they were both 1, that could be an 8.
I do usually do that.
Yeah, okay, so 1, 2, 3. If all the digits are different, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the longest sequence you could create.
I will say, by the way, for the longest time, I would make sure that I would have either a 5, 5, 10 line, which is a common combination, or a repeat, or whatever. I now feel like I've put out enough 10-line puzzles that I now no longer force it. Because it's like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm no longer particularly worried about it because I sort of established that that's an acceptable thing to do. And there are other there are other such things. But anyway, that is but that's a thing that people are now like surprised when they see a 10 lines puzzle that doesn't have that. I just no longer prioritize it. So it happens or it doesn't happen, as the case may be.
But 1, 2, 3, 4 clearly doesn't work here, does it? Because the other, I mean, if you put 1, 2, 3, 4 into those squares as a unit, this square would have to equal 10 on its own, and that's not possible. So each of the segments along here is at least 2 cells long. So starting from this end, these 2 are part of the same 10 sum. Starting from this end, these 2 are part of the same 10 sum. And this one is ambiguous. So it's either going to join to the top or to the right. Yeah, you can't make those 5 digits add up to 10 because obviously these 4 would all be different already, and the minimum sum of these would be 10 on their own. So if this is 5, this couldn't be 5. These two squares would have to add up to 5, and these two squares would add up to 10.
Yeah, the
sorry,
5 in
I'm
row
sort of
1
going
is
around the houses there. I don't think
maybe the
that's...
lowest hanging fruit here.
I'll mention what I've seen about the nose. So remember, this chair's going nuts. Remember, we have to oscillate polarity along the green lines. So let's think about this 3-cell 10 line here. Can we split this up in any way, or does it have to be all 3 of those digits adding up to 10? Well, I think fairly clearly it has to be all 3 of those digits adding up to 10. If we try and split this up into a 2 section and a 1 section, the 1 section will be a 10 on its own. That's nonsense. So those 3 digits add up to 10. What would happen then if this was of low polarity? These two would then be high polarity. They'd both be at least 6. So some of those would be 6 and 7 as a minimum. That's 13. You can't put -3 into this square. And that tells us our first deduction, which is that this is 7, 8 or 9. I didn't put 6 in here because that would require double 1. In column 5.
Yeah, the fact that it can't be 7 is very adorable.
At least 7. Oh, a tiny deduction. Right, it's not 7. Because if it is 7, what do you put into those two squares? They have to be different. They have to be at least 5 different from 7, so they have to be a 1-2 pair. And that doesn't work, because what digit would you then put in there? And the answer is 7. So you get 2. So if you make that 7, it forces that to be 7, which is rather cute. Right, let's see if we can do that again. If that's 8, then these... Now, the problem with 8 is you can introduce a 3 into these squares.
It's very cool. I wish I'd have thought about
some congregation.
There's absolutely nothing yet.
Yeah, and there's no need to put an 8 here now. Right, no, it doesn't work, does it? Well, it doesn't work, but it is true to say that these two digits have to be low. So they're from 1, 2, 3, and 4. This digit is a maximum of 7, because these are a minimum of 3, if these are a 1-2 pair. But this could be as low... What about if that was a 3-4 pair then? This could be as low as... Yeah, this could be as low as 3. If that's 3 and that's 4 and that's 3, then that would be 9 and that would work. This would add up to 10. So this could be as low as 3 or as high as 7. That's almost... I think that's...
Yeah, Nickel in chat is commenting that this doesn't have a completely linear solve path. It's definitely true. There's some... We'll see how Simon does it. There's certainly a intended way that I intended it to proceed, but a lot of people have sort of... So I intended people to work sort of this direction around the grid, clockwise. A lot of people work sort of counterclockwise and torture this 10 line a bit more. And then are able to sort of work through it that way instead and sort of come back and finish this at the end, which is totally fine. Given the grid is symmetrical, it means that the grid has slightly more information than it needs. And that slightly more information lets you sort of maneuver around the grid in different ways, which for a puzzle that I wanted to be a little bit easier, I think is totally fine. It's fine if you don't have to find exactly the right thing. I will say version 1 of this was a much, much, much harder version of this, because in the original version you had to notice that there was a hidden 5 in row 4 that was placed on a 10 line that then told you how the 10 line had to break down in a sort of complicated way that I really liked, but it made an entirely different feeling of sort of the style of puzzle that it was.
That's a pencil mark not worth making, actually. That's not going to be how you break into a zetamath puzzle. By pencil marking the puzzle to death. There's going to be some jiggery pokery that the great man has hidden. Oh, 5 in this box is sort of empty rectangle-ish. No, that's not it either. Oh dear, hang on. I'm sorry. I'm not quite on the same wavelength yet. I don't think I can do anything with this. It's funny, the long lines here, I don't think we can do anything with them initially. That's famous last words when the whole break... Yeah, oh... I'm trying to think about this from a setter's perspective. How has zetamath started to create this puzzle?
So the very first clues, and the only commonality between this version of the puzzle and the original I set, is the length 4 whisper and the length 4 10 line in row 1, where my whole intention was to note the 10 line can't be 1, 2, 3, 4 because it would break the whispers. So you actually immediately split the 10 line. And then once you split the 10 line, you realize that the 5 goes here. But I'll admit that was even one step further than I thought. I was just thinking about wanting to play the highs and lows off of each other between the whispers and the 10 line to say that how the 10 line had to split. That was my original version.
I don't know, actually, because it's so symmetrical. It's hard to tell. Maybe row 1. Can we do something in row 1? There's got to be 2 low and 2 high digits on the green line. Ah, okay, yes, row 1. Let's think about row 1 a little bit harder. How are we going to split up this line? That can't be 1, 2, 3 and 4, because although that works for this line individually, it doesn't work for the green line now, which within us, because this is oscillating, those two are the same polarity and those two are the same polarity. So there are 2 low digits, i.e. 2 of the digits 1, 2, 3 and 4 on this line. So this can't be a sequence of 4. So in other words, this line here has to split itself up in half. It's going to be
Oh, I like that color green he's using
domino
now.
adding up to 10 and another domino adding up to 10. Right, so that square is a 5. Because where does 5 now go in the top row? And the answer is it can't go on the green line, and because these are dominoes, it can't be in either of these dominoes, or the other digit in the domino would also have to be a 5. And there are...
So, just a note on how I set 10 lines. Usually when I set a 10 lines puzzle, I draw the lines and I try and only make deductions based on the fact that the line is there and not the fact that the line ends. So, like, I have one puzzle, for example, Baby Dragon, where the whole puzzle is a single 10 line that is a giant loop, so it doesn't even have a start or an end. And so I started with putting these 4 cells on a 10 line and these 4 cells on the whispers, and sort of just chased it from there, and sort of extended it. And I was shocked, actually, that this even had a solution. I was trying to prove to myself that actually if I just left it like this, it couldn't have a solution, and then figure out how I had to extend it or what exactly I had to do. But then I was sort of floored that this has a basically unique solution, even just with those lines of the eyebrows and the whatever, the I guess the eyes and the eyebrows. And so that sort of ended up being like, well, I'm going to keep it because I think it's so surprising that it even has a solution. But I was in the midst of having a very complicated proof that it didn't have a solution to figure out what to do.
Yeah. So I sort of... I'm wondering about 4 and 6 now in the top row. Do they have to be a pair over here, or could you somehow... If you put 4 in the corner, that would be 9. That would be low. Oh, you could put 6 there. So you could, yeah, you could have 4, 6, 1, 9 in the middle. Okay, so I can't use the third element of the German whisper secret to do anything in the top row. I don't think.
Not in the top
I do know
row.
that the contents of this line are sort of 2 low digits and 2 high digits, where the high and the low digits can be paired off into two twos that add up to 10, if you see what I mean. Hang on. Okay. Right, so forget about this line. I was thinking about 4s and 6s on this line. Let's not do that. Let's think about 4s and 6s in the middle of these lines, of the green lines. I can't put 4 and 6 in the middle of a green line. because it would have to be surrounded on both sides of it by the same number. And this, exactly the same works on this sort of side, the left eye of the clown, or the right eye as the clown looks at us, if you see what I mean. But the
Thank
left
you,
eye
Manu.
as we're
Yeah,
looking
this
at
was
the clown.
meant to be a slightly
because if you
gentler
put
one.
4 there, these two squares both have to be 9. If you put 4 there, these two squares have to be 9. So you can't put 4 or 6 in these squares. So 4 and 6 join the 5 over here. Right. So this digit is a monogamous digit. So the corner digit is not a 3, which would precipitate a song, but it is a 4 or 6. So that square's got to be 1 or 9.
Simon has returned back to Earth, yes.
And let me just mull this over now. But
and now he has to think about row 1 again.
But hang on. Yes. I want to say that's got to be a 4 or 6 now. That's right, isn't it? Because we thought about the top row. This is really clever. This is really clever. Because 2 of these dominoes, let's say this was 2, 8, and this was 3, 7. Which is possible, isn't it? Because each of those dominoes adds up to 10. Then obviously within this line, there must be 2 digits that add up to 10 and another 2 digits that add up to 10. I suppose I'm saying that's obvious to me, but that...
Yeah, Jay is talking about something that I think shows up a lot in Simon videos, is sort of Simon is talking to the audience, and so he has to explain why he's thinking about what he's thinking about, but then he has to explain it even if it turns out not to give you anything. And so like he does a lot of extra time that he wouldn't be doing if he was solving this on his own, explaining it because he doesn't know yet if it's going to come up to anything. When I'm solving puzzles when I'm streaming, I get to take advantage of the fact that I can just not talk about complicated things until I see someone in chat telling me that the complicated thing that I want to consider might actually be useful. But Simon doesn't quite have that bonus. So Simon has to sort of articulate it and then be like, oh, but that didn't get anything, and then sort of go on from there, which sort of ends up being like, oh, he sort of chased this around. But most of it was just explaining stuff that he was thinking about.
That derives from the fact that I know that rows add up to 45 in Sudoku. It's a secret. I only tell my favourite people. Once I knock the 5 out, I know I'm left with sort of four pairs of digits that add up to 10. 1, 9, 2, 8, 3, 7, and 4, 6. So once I know there's a 4, 6 over here, this right-hand side can't have a 4, 6 pair, can it? So there must be a 4, 6 pair on this line. But 4 and 6 are of opposite polarity, so that cannot be a 4, 6 pair. So the 4 or the 6 has to go at the other end of the line, and that's got to be a 1 or a 9. That's peculiar. That is peculiar, but rather pretty to me. So, right, so these digits are now... So they are 2, 3, 7, and 8. Okay, so let's think about 7 in the context of this line, the eye of the clown there. Now, where can 7 go? So to think about where 7 goes, we need to understand what its friends can be on a line. Now, 7 only partners up with 1
Good
and
morning,
2.
Kurban. Hope you're doing well.
So how could you put a 7 here? It can't have a 1 and a 2 around it. It could only have 2 2s around it, and that's going to break the line. So that can't be 7, and that can't be 7. So 7 is now in these 2 squares. 7 is always surrounded by 1 on one of its sides. So there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares now. Now,
thank you, Kurban.
Yeah, this works exactly the same with 3. What's 3 next to on a German whisper? Well, only 8 and 9. So we can't put the 3 here because these squares cannot include a 9. So that's
I
not
too
got
greatly
3 on
enjoyed
it.
watching
so
Tristan
this is a
solve
2
this.
8 pair now. This is a 3 7 pair, and this is a 1 9 pair. This is weird. It's absolutely weird.
I have to say, so I'm really glad I got a lot of positive feedback on this puzzle. I was a little surprised how enthusiastic people were. I'm obviously not a complaint. I love people being enthusiastic about my puzzles, but a lot of people really seemed to like this one, so I'm glad that it resonated with people. This was exactly what I was trying to set up, because I now have 1, 9, 2, 8, and 3, 7 glaring at this 10 line in both rows. And so this is exactly sort of glaring at this. So that was what I intended to be used next. We'll see if Simon instead chases this down here, because actually the fact that this is a 4, 5, 6 triple actually lets you do quite a bit of chasing down here. If I were doing it again and it were my goal to minimize the amount, I might make this line kink rather than going straight down, so that the 4, 5, 6 triple didn't look at it quite so strongly, because I don't at all blame anyone for seeing the 4, 5, 6 triple and saying, hey, I should think about what this 10 line does in light of the 4, 5, 6 triple. If I wanted people to look over here, I should have made this line zag this way instead. But the very next thing I did, so as I said, the first thing I put was these two, the next thing I put was these two. And then it turned out that one of these two cells is a 5 and one of these two cells is a 5. But you have to work hard to find that one of these two cells is a 5. And so the next thing I did was say, hey, I want to make this cell part of a German Whispers. Which also, by the way, was completely new, because in the previous version of the puzzle, all the green was on the same side and all the gray was on the same side. But in this version, it just worked out that I wanted to reward this. Exactly as Selena says, the next intended step is to say this sum isn't 30. I mean, I think it's completely reasonable. And if you chase the 4, 5, 6 triple, you get reasonably far. You're able to say stuff about this 10 line, which then sort of bounces around. And if you push hard enough, you naturally get led to it. I don't at all blame people, and you can get productive enough. You don't get too stuck, I don't think. But yeah, I was intending people to look at this and say the total is 20, not 30. And then you can figure out exactly what digits are on it from the fact that the total is 20, not 30. Because if you minimize it, you get a sum of 19. So you actually know exactly what the digits are and what it looks like, and then everything sort of falls into place from there.
Although, unfortunately, that's now... Has that run aground? We know these squares are R2, 3, 7, and 8. And we've got a digit on a grey line here. Yes. No, I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. How can this be...
as Jay says, you can do it completely as the only domino left is 4, 6. But then once you know that, you can actually figure out the entire contents of the line based on the fact that it has to sum to 20. Because it definitely can't... it can't be 2 3-length sums. And so... So as Simon goes about this, I'll explain. If you were going this direction, the next thing you have to prove is this is not 2 3-length sums. And it can't be 2 3-length sums because one of these rows has a 1 and a 2 in it. That's either 1, 2 or that's 1, 2. And whichever row has a 1 and a 2 in it, you can't make 3 digits that aren't 1 and 2 sum to 10. So this is actually has to sum to 20, and it has to be split as 2 and 4. And that then tells you ours. And when I say split as 2 and 4, I mean it's a domino and then 4 cells that sum to it. So that sort of is the intended rolling over here. I think Simon's going to chase this down and notice these two can't sum to 10, which is a really natural thing to notice, which is then going to sort of lead Simon down here, and we'll see exactly how that goes.
Can't be a domino adding to 10, because what would that digit be? If this is 5, it would have to be another 5. If this is 4 or 6, this would have to be a 4 or 6, but there's a 4, 5, 6 triple here. So
and this works out very cutely too, by the way.
Which means this is another... so this is a domino that adds to 10. This is a triomino that adds to 10. And that square can't be a 4, because if that square's a 4, this domino has to add up to 6 without using 4 or 5. So 4, 2 and 5, 1 would be off the cards. So that's not 4. If it's 5, these two squares add up to 5 without using 4. So these are a 2, 3 pair. If it's 6, there are 1 3 pair. Okay, so rather oddly, there is a 3 in this domino.
This is oddly relevant because
this
it tells you what this
domino...
domino is. That was intended. I
want,
just didn't intend it to be
say,
sort of
just,
immediately.
my brain just went through the options and it said it was a 1 9 pair, which is bizarre. That's going to fix
this
line,
was
if that's
intended,
right.
but
I
in my mind, I sort of intended this
right?
be
Hang on.
sort of after you figured out
That
exactly what was
can't
going
be
on over
4 or
here.
6. So 4 6 is off the cards. This square can't be 2 or 8, and there's a that's sick. That's really weird. Yeah, so this domino, which adds up to 10, can't be 3 7. That can't be 4 6. So 4 6 is off. 2 8 doesn't work, so it's 1 9, I think. And now that's not a 1. These haven't got 1 on them. So this is now a 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's very natural.
4 6 pair at the top. And
so, yeah, I mean, you'd absolutely feel like this was intended. I mean, and it is an intended step. It's just an intended step after you filled in more stuff over here. But as it happens, you don't need to fill in the more stuff over there in order to
there's a 1
to
9
do this.
pair in column.
But in the so I guess in my path, you get this 5 handed to you. You don't have to work at all for the 5, but then you get everything to do with the domino being forced sort of falls out. So the fact that this is a 5 in my path is a consequence of the fact that that can't be a 5, and so that's a 5, which places the 5 over there.
2. Hang on a sec. 1 7. This is 1 7 8 9 down here. So 7. Yeah. Okay. So 7 and 8 have to appear in 2 of these 3 squares at the bottom of column 1. Now, if that's 8, that can't work, because if this is 8, that would need to be 2, and it's not allowed to be. So that's not 8. In fact, that's not 7 either, because if that's 7, oh no, it can be 7, because that can be 3. Bobbins. No, I'm wrong. Okay, I didn't spot that. I could see that 7 wouldn't work with a 1 2 pair here, because 1 and 2 are out of bounds for this domino. But 7 can work with... No, 7 can work with a 3 there, and then these would have to split up somehow, or be a 1 2 3 4 quadruple, if that's possible. Which it might be, I'm not sure.
Do beware, by the way, that 6 1 2 1 is also a valid option for how you can get a 4-cell 10 sum. So it's very easy to think that a 4-cell 10 sum has to be 1 2 3 4, but it absolutely does not. There are other ways to make 4-cell 10 sums, and it is a very easy way to get got in one of these puzzles for sure.
All right, so have we actually learned?
The beautiful thing, by the way, now is this being a 4 6 has now told you which way our 2 4 breaks. So sort of you have the whole option now to get back on the horse of going over down here, which one of the people I watched solve this puzzle, I think it was Tristan. I don't remember. Someone who I watched solve this puzzle sort of did this detour first to sort out where the 5 went, and then immediately grabbed this again and said, okay, I know this is a domino. I think it was JC Godar, actually. I think it was the person who made the puzzle we just solved on stream, actually. I think it was JC Godar. Did this detour and then noticed, now that you know this is split as a 2 and a 4, you know where the 2 is, because this 2 can't be 1 9 2 8 3 7 or 4 6, which was sort of again intended now in whichever order happens.
Oh, well, this is right. I've had one thought, which is rather beautiful.
Can, Tom.
I haven't quite worked out what this does, but look at this congregation of digits.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
4 6 3 7 2 8 1 9. They are all the possible dominoes that add up to 10. So this little congregation, the right eye of the clown, can't begin with a domino, because there's no domino available, because these options have ruled out everything, basically. So it begins with at least a triomino. Now, if it... if it begins with a triomino...
Yeah, so I admit when I was setting this, I proved to myself it can't be 2 triominoes. And then I just assumed it was broken. But then I just happened, because it was so little I could enter it into a solver. I just entered into a solver and said, hey, is there a solution of this if I make this 10 and make this a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple? And saw it was, and was like, oh, well, I have to try and make that work if that's a possibility.
I don't know. I suspect it does begin with a triomino. I think a better question might be, can it... Ah, no, hang on. That's annoying. I was about to say, can it be a quadruple? But I forgot, or I didn't appreciate immediately, that those 2 squares could be the same number. So they could both... Oh, they can't both be 1, actually. Oh, no, hang on. It's quite difficult for them to be the same number. They can't be the same number. That's... Because if these were the same number... They would have to be a low enough number. So what I'm saying is,
Simon
is
and I are the only 2 humans on
squares
Earth who thought through this. I'm gonna speculate, because I definitely thought of this when I was first thinking of this as well. I've used one of the 1s, 2s, and 3s in rows 2 and 3, so I only have 1, 1, 1, 2, and 1, 3 available over here. And so that sort of dictated my way of thinking about this line and noticing what this line had to be. And I assume no one else would think it, but I am happy to see that Simon, my friend, has thought about this in exactly the same way.
Now, normally, you just say, well, there's one way, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I suddenly thought, what if they were double 1? Then these 2 squares could be 2 numbers that add up to 8, which gives a lot more flexibility. But these can't be double 1, because that would break this 1, 9 pair. They can't be double 2, that would break the 2, 8 pair. And they can't be double 3, because that would break the 3, 7 pair, which means the minimum they can be is double 4. But then these 2 squares would have to add up to 2, and they can't, because they would be a minimum of a 1, 2 pair. So the only way this is a 4-cell sequence is if it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm pretty certain that's not going to work. I just have to work out why.
Right with you, Simon. Right with you. As noted, I was very sure it was not going to work.
4.
Simon just has to try and disprove the way that it obviously has to be.
Ooh, sounds like there's either police or ambulance activity flying past outside. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't immediately see why that doesn't work. Oh, no, I know how to do this. Right. Okay, I should take my own advice. Look at this line now. Well, we can polarity shade it. So those squares and those squares... Oh, hang on, that was probably a bad choice of colour. Let's go there. Hopefully that's a bit clearer. But you can see that these orange ones have the same polarity. So there's no way that they can be low, because we know that these 3 squares at least are part of the sequence that's got to add up to 10 on this line. So if there's no 1 or 2 in a 3-cell sequence...
That's right, ABJ.
It's at least 3, 4, 5, which is 12. That's far too many. 12 is bigger than 10. There is a knowledge bomb for you from Cracking the Cryptic.
And at least for once, orange is going to be high, as Simon solved with one of my
which means
puzzles.
This is 8, this is 9,
that's a very
7,
clever way to do
3,
it, that sort of
2,
gets at the same idea.
But now that can't be by the same reason that said that's at least... This now can't be a 3-cell sequence. Because then it would be...
There we
it
go.
would be at least 3, 4, 6, actually.
Yes,
so
having the 1 and the 2 did it.
This is amazing, actually. This is going to do massive work. Because we can get rid of that highlighting now, I think. But the point is that this can't be a 3-cell sequence. So this is a 2-cell sequence.
Yeah, as Jennifer says, it's not a big problem, because Simon didn't spend that much time. He was trying to disprove it, but as it happened, his entire argument that he made to disprove that it was that didn't work actually amounted to proving the thing he needs to prove anyway.
Because we know that these 3 are in the same unit, so actually those 4 are in the same unit. Let me just pick a good colour. I'll go with grey on grey, but I think that's fine. So these must be 1, 2, 3, 4, and in fact we know the position of the 3. And now we know this
ABJ,
is...
these 8 and 9, they were either 8 and 9 or 1 and 2, but if they were 1 and 2, it made it impossible to make these 3 cells sum to less than 10. And he knew they needed to.
It's a 4-6 pair, which feels like it's going to break the world. How does that work with this? Ooh. I don't know. Maybe it's not... I thought that looked a bit broken-y to me, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, so when setting, so people are talking about, a lot of people, this is their last step, which is totally fine. When I was setting this, this was filled in when only these 4 clues and a single green smudge were in the grid. And so that is where sort of how I set it. And so like I didn't know what this green line was going to do. I just knew a German Whispers was going to touch this this cell.
And that's just got to be 4-6 because it can't be 3-7-1-9 or 2-8. There's a 4 looking at that digit. So this is going to do the top line. So that's 6, that's 4, that's 9, that's 1, that's 6. 5 in this row has to go there. So that digit's a 7. That's a 6, so that's a 4, that's a 6. This isn't a 4 now, or a 1, so that's a 2. This is a 1-4 pair. 3 is knocked out of the green domino, so that can't be 3-7. That's got to be 2-8, which means this purple domino is 3-7, and the 7 there tells us the order. We're going to get the whole of the top of the grid done, I think. Or roughly done, anyway.
As so very often happens in my puzzles. Very often
9.
you get the whole top of the grid basically at the beginning.
So now we know the polarity of this L pentomino over here. Okay, I might be wrong. I can't see immediately how to unwind these 2 pairs at the top. But this is I tell you what was beautiful about this. This little congregation of digits, taking each of the 2 possible, each possible way of making a domino out to 10 out of this line. That is sick setting, isn't it? That's absolutely beautiful. Now, this line, now we can polarity shade. So these 2 digits have got to be high digits, but you can't put 6 in the middle of a line. You can't put 6 here because that would be a 1 and that would clash there. So we've got, right, that can't be 9 either by Sudoku. Outrageous, make me do Sudoku after a mere 34 minutes of zetamath Sudoku puzzle. These 2 digits have got to be low. They can't be 4s because that would have 9 on both sides of them. That can't be a 1. No, that's not. Okay, that's not actually resolved the world, has it? Bobbins. Maybe it's Sudoku over here. Oh, look, no, I can do a little bit of Sudoku. I just noticed. That 9 is knocking 9 out of here. I've got a 7-8 pair in box 6 now. That's suddenly emerged. 7 has to be in this domino in box 4. 3 has to be at the bottom of the grid. So 7-3 is still very much a possibility.
It really tickled me that this being a 2 resolves the 7-8 by mechanism of this 2-8 up here. I don't know why, but that just delighted me when I was setting this. So when I was trying everything under the sun for what this line was going to look like I said, I knew it was going to start here, and I tried a whole bunch of different shapes to get a whole bunch of different versions of it. And when I eventually sort of settled on this pairing, that was what really sold me on this, was the fact that the 2-8 from up here, from the 10 line, sorts out this Whispers 2-8.
Down here. I think maybe the top of this grey line might be under pressure. Because the minimum... Yeah, what's the minimum value of those 2 digits? Well, the minimum is 4-5. Now, if these were 4-5, that would require this to be a 1, which it cannot be. So this must add up to at least 10, therefore. And the only way it can add up to 10 is by being 4 and 6. So that's 4 and 6. which probably deserves its own. Well, I haven't got... Oh, no, I've still got orange available. And therefore these squares have got to be 5, 7 and 8. So 8 is now placed in the box. This is a 5, 7 pair. Get rid of the corner marked 7. And it's just chairs. I'm sure this has done something. Okay, well, it's done to the bottom of 2, 2, 5 and 2, 5, 9 at the bottom of here. So that can't be 9, because that would have to be a 1 on the 10 line. That can't be 9, can it? Yeah, this 10 line is a group of 3 cells that add up to 10. Can't be made up any other way. So we can't put 9 on here, because these 2 squares would have to add up to 1. So 9 gets placed into box...
It's a good spot, Tom.
7. 9 is nearly... Actually, we do know a bit about 9, so let me just think about that for a moment. No, I don't think we do know enough about 9s. I might be wrong. I think 9 is on the whisper in box, or on a whisper in box 9. But I don't think I know where. Not sure. What about... Okay. I can now eliminate 7, 3 from the bottom of this line in box 7, because if this was 7, 3, these 2 squares would have to add up to 10, and they'd have to be 2 here and 8 here, and that doesn't work.
The red lines
so
are very
So
helpful.
we can take 7 out of this square. That gives me a 7, 8.
If you don't know what microstudy is talking about with the red lines, one thing you can do on 10 lines puzzles is you can just sort of start a line at each end to say, like, how big is this sum to 10, and just sort of add to it until it's done. And you certainly know these 2 are in the same 10 sum, and these 2 are in the same 10 sum. And what microstudy is noting is that if you do that, you'd know that all 4 of these, surprisingly, end up in the same 10 sum, which tells you exactly what they are.
Okay, that gives me a 7, 8 pair in this column, and I hadn't realised this, but I get a 1 at the bottom of the grid. I have noticed that... No, there is still. I had noticed that 1, 2, 3, 4 could go on this line. It just didn't seem very likely to me. No, it does. It's that. That's the only way it can work now. Yeah, sorry. That's now I think about it, is the only way we can do it. Because I can't make this a domino, because I can't make this a domino. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, and we know the order. So that's 1.
It's interesting he could argue either of them couldn't be a domino.
Let's get rid of the corner mark. This must be a something, a 6. And I'm sure that's doing something. Okay, yes. Where does 6 go in box 8? Oh no, I'm wrong. Oh no. Oh no, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I just didn't. So I immediately thought 6 couldn't go here because it's in the middle of a whisper, forgetting, of course, that these 2 cells don't see one another, so they could both have been 1, except there's a 1 in the corner. That does prevent that from being a 6. So, in fact, I think 6 goes there. So it's very... Oh, this is it. Right, there we go. Now look at that digit. That digit sees all the high numbers. It sees 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's got to be low. That tells us the polarity of the whisper.
I have an alternate proof that that digit had to be low, but that
6.
works.
So it is 7, 8, or 9. It's not a 10 line, though, so we don't have to make it 7 with a 1, 2 pair. That can't be a 1, obviously. Okay, so what does that mean? Got lots of low digits here. So one of these is low, and so there is a 9 in one of those 2 squares in this column. So there's so there's a 9 in one of these 2 squares, which is probably not that interesting. If that's 9, does that break anything? I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, okay. So we've got a 5 here on a 10 line. So these two squares have to add up to 5. Which means this can't be 4 anymore, because that would need a 1 here, which would break there. So this is a 2-3 pair, which means that's not a 2 or a 3. I'm sure this does something more than that. I just can't see what it is.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't
There's
glom
a
onto
2,
row
3,
6,
4
column 9
triple
right away when he
there,
had
but
it next to a
that could be
7-8
2, 3,
pair.
4 triple. Is there something going on? Oh yeah, there you go. Look at that. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple in row 8.
That'll do it for you.
So these squares are high. They are from 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can't put 6 in the middle of a whisper line. So that's a 6. That's come somewhat out of nowhere. Although I've worried that doesn't do anything. 6 is now in this domino in box 6. That's and that's high. So that tells us the polarity of the long whisper here at last. So those squares are high. So they're 6, 7, 8, 9. No, that's not 6 by Sudoku. That's not 6 by Sudoku. Neither of these are 7 by Sudoku either. Now we only have to get... Right, I've got an 8-9 pair here. So that's now a 7. That's an 8. That's not 8. That's not 8. There's a 7-9 pair. So one of these is 7, and if it's this one, it has to be surrounded by 1 and 2. Which might be fine, I'm not sure. Okay, let's try, I think we should try row 7 now, where all the high digits have been used. We need 1, 3, 4, and 5. So that square is 3, 4, or 5 now. But it's not 3, because 3 is in this domino. So that's 4 or 5. So 4, well, it can't be 4, because if that's 4, that's a 1, and that would need to be a 5 to make this 10 line work, so that doesn't work. So that's got to be 5. These two do add up to 5, and this is a 1 or a 4, so this is a 1 or a 4, and now must be a 4. Therefore, that's a 1.
Oh, this 7-8 next to a 2-3
next
to a 2-3 pencil mark is something that happens to me
not
all
the
the
way round we
time.
want.
I don't want to. I'm not sort of mocking Simon here. I miss this sort of thing all the time. But usually, this is the sort of thing where it's sort of like a pattern he's seen enough times. He just immediately eviscerates it. But he also hasn't seen that the 7-8 makes the 8, 9, and 9. So I think he just didn't really process the 7-8.
Did that. 4 is in this oh, that's not bad actually. Look, 4, now we can ask where that goes in this column potentially, and it's in one of the 2 cells at the bottom, but it could be in the corner because that can be a 9. Rotten naughty puzzle. These are from 2, 3, and 9 now. So in one case there's going to be a pair, so whichever one of these is not 9 is going to, then going to be a pair of 2 and 3 in the other row. If that was there, that would make this square a 1. 2, 3, 4. In that box is forced to be here. That's just Sudoku. So this is a 7, 8, 9 triple, but that square is a 7 or an 8. Now this is 1, 5, 6. And we can get that digit by Sudoku. That's got to be 5, look, because it sees 1 and 6 in its row. This square's low, and it's not 1 or 4, so it's 2 or 3. That's a pair in the box now, so this is a 1, which would be consistent with that being a 2, 3 pair. 1 puts no pressure at all on the whisper. That could be 3. We're surrounded by 8, 9. That would work very nicely. And this square is a 7 or an 8. Oopsie, let's just make sure we put the right digit in. So we've got 2s, 3s, 7s and 8s in this column. And the other thing I haven't done, look, is I haven't labelled these 2 digits up. So let's do that. We know they're low digits. They're 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So that can't be 4, can't be 2. Oh, there you go. That's a 1. Naked single. It sees all the other low digits. And it can't be 4 because that would need to be surrounded by double 9. So that being a 1 makes that a 1 and that a 4 and that a 4. Now, has that done any magic for us? 4 here means that can't be a 4. So this is a 4. I think it feels like we've done all the 4s. Now we have 4, 3. That 3 really underperformed, didn't do anything.
3 really underperformed.
Okay, these squares are not
3.
1 anymore. 5. No, that's no. What's going on? Why can't I just write in all the digits?
I have these moments on stream all the
okay,
time where I finally see something and I'm like, well, that's been available for 45 minutes, hasn't it?
4 anymore. So if that's 7, then this is going to have to be a 2. That's going to disambiguate the 2, 3 and the 8, 9 here. That would do a lot of work.
I think his odds of a 3 in a corner are pretty good, though.
Oh, I see. Look, where does 7 go in box 9? The answer is I don't quite know, but I do know it's in one of these squares. That's looking up here. So that becomes 8. That becomes 7. That must be next to 2 on its whisper.
Well, whoever bet that we were going to completely avoid using whisper logic to disambiguate this, bet correctly.
Is only 4 away. So that becomes a 3. That becomes a 7. So that becomes an 8 by Sudoku now in this box, which means that becomes 9. That's 8. That's 9. That's 7. That's great. So that puts 2 on both of those whisper squares, makes this 3, makes this 9. Doesn't affect this. Oh, no, that's great. What's this digit? Boom. That's 3 in the corner. That's 3 in the spotlight. Losing its religion. Very nice. Thank you for that, zetamath. That's a 5-6 pair. Probably resolved.
You're
by
welcome,
something.
Simon.
1 here is doing work.
We'll pretend I did that for you.
6, 5, 5, 7. This is a 2 now. This is 3, 9, which is resolved. I think the puzzle has now yielded fully. We've now got a 5 here. We've got an 8 here, and we've got a something there. 4. No, 7. That's what I think we've got there. That feels right. I haven't done all my shading of the 10 lines. Maybe I should do that. So those are all the same colour. We'll make those dark green again. These are all the same. Make those light green. Those are all the same. We'll make those red again. And that's everything. Let's see if it's right. Yay! Solve counter 234. That is the pull of the great man. zetamath with an absolutely magnificent... That's a magnificent puzzle. That you can do that with a symmetrical grid.
Gary.
And include such...
Garian says, very appropriate to put in a wrong digit right at the end. I definitely do that a lot. I do that a lot.
Beautiful logic. It's such talented setting. It really is. That's very enjoyable as well, because it was never monstrous. We just had to know and avail ourselves of a couple of secrets. So it felt smooth and had a very nice flow to it. It's just an absolutely brilliant variant Sudoku. Funhouse by zetamath. zetamath, take a bow again. I mean, I don't know how often you have to bow in response to Krug in the Cryptic videos. It's probably quite a lot. I feel that we should be genuflecting before you a bit as well. Let me know in the comments how you got on with that one. I enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.
Oh, and that, okay. I was like, why is there this segment at the end? What's going to happen? But it is the people who completed the thing. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, I can pull back up the grid just in case I want to say anything about it. Yeah, that was quite a lovely song. It followed almost exactly what I intended. Like I said, he did this maybe before I would have done it, like one hair before, but then he immediately went back here and then maybe slightly off the rails a bit with the not seeing the 7-8, so he went and did everything. But by that point, the puzzle had basically collapsed anyway. He just hadn't noticed that the puzzle had basically collapsed. So, but by that point, there was not too much left to do. So it didn't really matter exactly what order you sort of hit it in. I think this 10 line is unnecessary, if I recall correctly. One of these, I have it for bilateral symmetry, because, of course, by the end, when I was trying to resolve it, I needed to keep the bilateral symmetry, but without putting a clue in the grid that was wrong. And so one of these was unnecessary, but it worked. So I was really happy to do that. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for hanging out and joining me for this solve, as always. I always enjoy reacting to cracking the cryptic solves of my puzzles. It's a great opportunity to talk about setting process and what my thoughts were and all these sorts of things. And this was a fun puzzle to set. Aside from the fact that I said it twice because I horribly broke the first version. But anyway, thank you for hanging out. And if you're new around here, if you haven't seen the stream before, I do stream 2 days a week, and my husband Tristan streams the other day of the week. And sometimes I do bonus streams, like I streamed my setting an entire puzzle from start to finish yesterday. So if you want to go back and watch that sort of thing, please do. Please do subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And I will see you all. Hopefully I'll see you all very soon. But with that, thanks for watching, everyone, and bye for now.